Mr Chairman, I went collecting for Women's Refuge on Friday, and when I came out to my car, I discovered that there was a little plastic bag with a message tucked inside it under my windscreen wiper, and I thought that I would bring it to Parliament because actually when I saw it there I thought, gosh, it's probably something awful about me because I do have rather a large picture of myself on my car. But anyway, I found that it had this message: tell the powers that be, and this is why it's appropriate to read it out in the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, tell the powers that be that John Key's glued-on mask is merely a drastic attempt at covering his feeling of insecurity. When he loses the next election, I will have so many fond memories of him, but won't remember where I put them. Signed, GD. Well, thank you, GD. I've done what you asked me to do, a very good constituent, and he actually attached it to a cartoon. What's the good of having something to look forward to if I can't remember what it was? And I think the point that he was trying to make there is exactly the point that we're making in this debate. I want to know why the government is no longer ambitious for New Zealand. I thought we were promised a brighter future. I thought the Prime Minister said he would be unrelenting in his quest to lift our economic growth rate and to raise wage rates so that we could catch up with Australia. Does anyone else remember that? Because my constituent obviously can't remember that because he's got nothing to look forward to as far as this government is concerned. Then that's because the government has actually spearheaded the opposite direction to the one that they spelt out in their election campaign. Mr Speaker, I wonder whether that was because he was overseas working in the financial institutions that brought us the global financial crisis when the wage gap was actually created by a national government. There was no wage gap when National took office in 1990. It was created during the 1990s, and John Key didn't know that because he wasn't living in New Zealand at the time. Mr Speaker, they managed to produce a huge wage gap, growing year after year after year through their policies, and they're doing it all over again. And we've heard the Honourable Darren Hughes spell out all of those different things that the government is actually failing to do, which is meaning that we're not able to address that gap at all. And I want to just comment briefly on a couple of the things around the workplace, and that's union access to work sites and letting employers sack workers without good cause and without a reason within the first 3 months on the job. And I want to ask the Prime Minister, how does that work for a young person? And I wonder if the Prime Minister is actually aware that there are probationary provisions already in the Act that enable employers to set expectations, to monitor performance and to provide feedback, enabling employers to terminate for cause if the individual is not up to scratch. What does sacking someone without telling them why, what does that do for the worker themselves in terms of their capacity to enter the workforce and be a contributor to New Zealand's economic future and their own social and economic well-being? And I recall a case that was brought to our attention when the Employment Contracts Act went through. A young worker, first job, unfortunately the end of the first week he got involved in some drinking, and they were smoking at the workplace as well, at the end of the shift when the shop was closed, and he spilled some ash on the carpet. The employer sacked him on the spot for the damage that he had done to the shop. And this young man carried on drinking. He actually bought a bottle of spirits, went down to the river, and he killed himself. Now, I know that that is an extreme example, but his mother brought it to our attention because she was so concerned that vulnerable individuals were being left without proper support when they could be terminated from their employment, and ending up having them to cope with that. And I think it's really important that young people know what's expected of them. How on earth do we grow good workers in this country if we don't teach them how to do well in the workforce? And I think this is a disgraceful misrepresentation to the public, pretending that it's about a trial period. We've already got those in the law. It's an excuse to sack workers with no excuse, and that simply is inexcusable. And I also want to ask the Prime Minister what evidence there was that unions were abusing their right of entry. Not one example was given in the House today. And
Mr. Chair.